failures as well as our successes will be broadcast around the world.
When people are given the chance, they inevitably will choose a free press.
Gives voice to the voiceless, exposes injustice.
I consider the media to be indispensable to democracy.
As we have seen from the protests of the last month and even today, those provoking violence are part of the problem and not part of the solution.
The world witnessed a remarkable split-screen image on Monday when the U.S. opened its new embassy in Jerusalem. As Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law and point man on Middle East peace, and some major Trump donors and right-wing evangelical allies celebrated the embassy opening. Just miles away on the Gaza border, Israeli forces shot and killed more than 50 Palestinians during mass protests. Meanwhile, the New York Times reports that the company controlled by Kushner's family is close to finalizing a deal with a Qatar-linked company to bail out its troubled Manhattan building at 666 Fifth Avenue, according to executives briefed on the deal. That's likely to raise new concerns about Kushner's role in the Middle East. Back with me, Malcolm Nance, MSNBC contributor and author of The Plot to Hack America, Naveed Jamali, MSNBC intelligence analyst and author of How to Catch a Russian Spy, and Sarah Kendzior, scholar of authoritarian states and author of The View from Flyover Country. I'm going to go in reverse order and start with you, Sarah, because you've been tweeting a lot about this, and it is an issue that doesn't come up enough, I don't think, and I think you made this point, is that when we talk about Jared Kushner supposedly being the broker, the American broker for peace in the Middle East, we don't talk enough about his own family, the financial ties between himself and the settlement movement. If you could expound on that.
Yeah, Kushner's family, especially his father, Charles Kushner, has had personal ties to Netanyahu to the degree that Netanyahu would come to the Kushner family home and sleep there. Kushner's father is also a convicted criminal. The family has investments in the West Bank. They have investments in settlements. And so, you know, it's to their financial benefit for there to not be a two-state Palestinian solution, for them to back the extremist policies of Netanyahu. They may have, you know, an ideological goal or objective, but they also have a vested financial interest. And traditionally, this would be the sort of conflict of interest that would be, you know, deemed inappropriate for someone in Kushner's position. Of course, in the past, you generally don't appoint the son-in-law of the president to oversee the Middle East peace policies, you know, with a total lack of qualifications. But yes, people should definitely be following the money when it comes to the Kushner family and the Middle East. And
you know, Malcolm, this is somebody who could not retain a security clearance because he had too many unanswered questions when he filled out his forms about who he does business with. He is somebody who is working alongside our ambassador to Israel on this project. The ambassador to Israel before his appointment as ambassador to Israel, it was David Friedman, he's a veteran Trump lawyer. He headed a fundraising organization that raised tens of millions of dollars for Beit El, one of the most ideologically radical Israeli settlements on the West Bank. And I remember you talking about during the campaign, this promise to move the embassy to Jerusalem could set off a third intifada because it is such a provocative move, essentially seizing all of Jerusalem or in theory, denying the Palestinians what they believe to be their capital, what they'd like to have as their capital. So is this just a lack of foresight in having people who are so tied to the settlement movement running our peace process? Or do you think the Trump administration is sending a message to the Palestinians, you're getting nothing?
Well, they sent that message to the Palestinians over a year ago where they said, you will accept what we offer you, through the Saudis, by the way, or you're getting nothing anyway. Because what's happening when you move that embassy to Jerusalem, you've essentially said that the two-state solution is dead, and you validate the largest open-air prison policy for the West Bank and Gaza and open it to settlement. But can I make a quick point, Joy, because I know you're going to transition to it. That's small beans compared to this Qatari stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, in December 2016, they met with the head of the Qatari Investment Fund, Ahmed al-Rumahi, and the Qatari foreign minister. And out of that came, I guess there's discussions that they may have asked for assistance on 666 Fifth Avenue to bail them out. They were like $1 billion in debt. That didn't happen. And then within 6 months, the Saudis and Emiratis and Kuwaitis, they all start blockading Qatar. And after that, the Qataris start, through the White House and Kushner, start essentially doing things which please the Kushner and Trump families. And now everything's back, and the Qataris are bailing out that building. I think that story is the next gigantic indictment-filled scandal, because it really goes to beyond the fact that he's an employee of the United States government. This could be a massive bribery scheme, and that is par for the course for the Middle East. When you want to exercise influence, you pay them.
And, Naveed, I remember on this very show, we asked last year, attempted to find out from the White House, they were not pleased with this question, whether or not, when Jared Kushner was making these trips to Saudi Arabia and becoming friends with the Crown Prince there, whether or not he was inquiring about 666 Fifth Avenue. For those who have not been following it, in 2007, the Kushner family buys this property, Jared Kushner spearheading it. They paid $1.8 billion for it. By 2012, Vornado Realty Trust bought 49.5% of the office. There's a huge balloon payment that's due next year. The Kushners came close to a deal with a Chinese insurance company, Anbang, that later fell apart to try to refinance it so they could make that balloon payment. Charles Kushner then meets with Qatar's finance minister, where funding was discussed in 2017. Then sometime thereafter, when the Qataris apparently said no, perhaps coincidentally, they get blockaded by the UAE and the Saudis. 2019, the $1.4 billion mortgage is due, and as Vanity Fair reports, Qatar's newfound beneficence toward the Kushner family is especially curious, given the long-standing speculation about Jared's personal alliances with Mohammed bin Sultan and Mohammed bin Zayed, the crown princes of Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi. The bottom line being that it appears that a change of heart happened at some point when Qatar said no. They ended up blockaded by the Saudis, who again are partners in our version of the Palestinian peace deal, and then suddenly they said yes.
Yeah, I mean, this is at the heart of this, Joy. What we're really, when it comes to the Trump cabal, what we're asking is the difference between quid pro quo, using diplomacy, and pay to play. One is you're using your influence to negotiate something that is advantageous to the United States. The other is using your position and influence to negotiate something that is advantageous to you. And look, this is nothing new. As Sarah Kendzior has reported on, ad nauseum, Donald Trump is a private citizen. I don't say this lightly. He was a crook. I mean, this is a man who, before he entered the presidency, settled a $25 million lawsuit against Trump University. Everyone who surrounded him did business this way. The difference is now they're in a position where they're representing the United States when they're supposed to be doing things that are in the interest of the United States. And they're using that position not to do things that are beneficial to the United States, but to them. And I don't know about the criminality of this, but I know the morality of this. It's wrong. It's just simply wrong. And, as Dr. Jason said in the last segment, this is something that if you feel strongly, this is a voting issue. I don't know if Donald Trump is going to be impeached, but I know we need to remember this. We need to remember that these are people who have had a long history of acting this way long before they entered the realm of power, and they're going to continue doing that. And if that's who you want representing this country, if that's the ideals that you think this country represents, then you need to take a long look in the mirror. And for those who don't, vote.
Yeah, and let's read from the Washington Post. The firm that seems likely to invest in 666 Fifth Avenue, they issued a statement about Qatar saying and they were Brookfield Asset Management. They have a real estate firm that's partially owned by the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Qatar. Brookfield said in a statement that, quote, no Qatar-linked entity has any involvement in, investment in, or knowledge of this potential transaction, which seems a bit odd to me if they are partly owned by the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Qatar, but we'll make sure that statement gets on the record. I am interested in Qatar in general, Sarah, because they have been in the bailout business before. After 2014, when the Rosneft ExxonMobil deal fell apart because the Obama administration sanctioned Rosneft and sanctioned Igor Sechin, who led the company personally, Qatar stepped in and bought up part of Rosneft. So they have a lot of money that's washing around in this whole sort of world that includes a lot of oil and a lot of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has tried to do business in Doha. So what do you make of their leverage? They're either in or out, depending on how nice they are to American big business folks.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the Trump administration, you basically have the question of what's going on. Is it extortion or is it bribery? And I think with Qatar, we've seen a little bit of both. When Trump took power, he basically put a sign on the White House lawn saying USA going out of business sale. And all over the world, you have seen, the worst representatives, the worst businessmen and leaders of many different countries trying to get a piece of this action because they knew that they could exploit the situation to their benefit. And so Qatar matter in that sense is not very different than others, but it is worth examining the 666 Fifth Avenue purchase, because I agree that this is kind of a tip of the iceberg of a larger, financial and criminal problem that this family is having.
Yeah, he certainly had a very big need for money, and he somehow got the money. Thank you very much to Malcolm Nance, Naveed Jamali, and Sarah Kendzior. Thank you all. And up next, the newlyweds who captivated millions this morning.
Why are Subaru Outback owners always smiling? Because they've chosen the industry leader. Subaru Outback holds its value better than any other vehicle in its class according to ALG. Better than RAV4. Better than Grand Cherokee. Better than Edge. Make every adventure a happy one with Subaru Outback. Get 0% APR financing on the 2018 Subaru Outback.
Hey, Shrimp fans.